The wellness industry preys on people's fears, they prey on people's vulnerabilities, and ultimately they're an industry trying to sell you something. We know from the Harvard study of adult development that the number one predictor of your physical and mental well-being above every other factor is the quality of your relationships.
Hello and welcome back to Life with Danni, Duncan. I hope everyone is having an awesome week. We release our podcasts on a Thursday, so today is also a Thursday. And we got back from Noosa on Monday and it was beautiful and the sky was blue and we flew into Melbourne and it was grey. But I think I've brought some Noosa weather back with us, so it's a bit nicer here in Melbourne. And hopefully when this comes out, the weather is a bit sunnier and warmer because the sunshine makes everything better. It makes our mental well-being better, which is a great little segue because I have the beautiful Sophie Scott on my podcast today. So welcome, Soph.
Thank you, Danni. It's awesome to be here.
I've been so excited about this episode and chatting with you. We sort of chat back and forth on socials a lot and I love what you do and you're so supportive of me, which is so beautiful. So thank you.
I think you're awesome and I'm just so grateful to have this time to talk to you and to your audience.
Oh, thank you. So let's just get straight back into it. I'd love to know what you think is the most controversial, like your most controversial opinion about the wellness industry in general.
So I think it's really good that you've called it the wellness industry for a start, because I think often with, content that we see, it's often really has a bit of a health halo over it. But I think often the wellness industry preys on people's fears, they prey on people's vulnerabilities, and ultimately they're an industry trying to sell you something. So I always tell people to sort of follow the money and look at someone might be putting out something saying, oh, look, you've got this problem. Here's the solution for it. And by the way, I just happen to sell a supplement that is going to solve it for you. Whereas, like, as you know, in health, it's rarely as clear cut as one simple solution to a problem. And so I think if we can be really strategic in our approach to wellness, and, I don't think wellness is all bad. And in the same way, I think you can have the best of both worlds, really. You can have the best of conventional medicine and medications, and you can also pick and choose the best evidence-based in the wellbeing and wellness sector. So it doesn't have to be, I'm definitely not all or nothing. I think why not have the best of both worlds? But I think the use of the word wellness industry is important to remember, that ultimately a lot of the time it's about selling you something and preying on your insecurities to make you feel like this is the solution and only this is the solution, when it's often, unfortunately, not as clear cut as that.
No, I totally agree with that. Even people prey on me, as someone in this space, as a nutrition and fitness coach, I get people going, oh, Danni, like, I love what you do. They start off with that beautiful opening statement. I love what you do. And then especially after having cancer, oh my gosh, can you imagine all the people that are like, you should take this and you should take this and this and this and this. And luckily for me, I'm informed and I'm, I think for myself, but it would be so easy if you're vulnerable, if you're not feeling great, to go, yes, this is what I need. And I've spoken with women who, come to do coaching with me, they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on supplements. And I just sit there and go, oh gosh, you won't invest in coaching to actually help set some habits up, but you'll, spend money on all these supplements that who knows if they actually are working or not.
And I think sometimes we do look for the quick fix. It can be human nature to just want to try to find an easy way to a complex problem. But there are some easy things you can do that we can talk about that don't involve necessarily shelling out hundreds of dollars for expensive supplements and powders and potions and things like that may or may not have any benefit for you. And Australians are some of the biggest users of complementary medicines. I think most other people don't realise that. And so you really just need to be thinking about, ideally, working with practitioners and doctors and complementary medical practitioners that can working together. So you're getting a very holistic approach to your physical and emotional well-being, rather than just sort of trying to do it all yourself and pick and choose things that you think might help, may or may not help.
Yeah. And then that I always think with those things as well is, do you want to be taking those things forever? I always think, I don't want to be sitting there taking that stuff forever. If there's something I can do, holistically every day in my life that doesn't require me to pop a pill or have a drink of something that I don't have to do forever. It's kind of like, creatine, there's so many massive benefits. I'm like, gosh, it's something I'm going to have to do forever. Like that makes me go, it's almost annoying, So, I'm all into fitness, and through my cancer journey, it was the thing that seriously got me through, and I'm a massive advocate. But what is the cost of being sedentary have on our mental health that potentially people don't realise?
The thing about being sedentary is that, society really sets us up for failure. If you think about it, a lot of us are sitting at our desks for, 6 hours or 8 hours a day. Then you come home and then you sit might sit in front of the TV. We really need to be aware of the fact that the price that you're paying for conforming to what society sees as normal, that sort of spending so many hours sitting, is just our bodies are designed to move and move in whatever way feels good for you. And for some people, that might be doing lots of exercise and getting up and going for a run. And for other people, it's just having short little bursts of, a couple of breaks throughout the day of like a 10-minute walk in the morning and a 10-minute walk in your lunch break. And then maybe doing something when you get home. So whatever works for you. But the cost of not doing that is really your physical and mental well-being, because it's really hard to feel great when you're completely sedentary, let alone, what it's doing on a physiological level with, increasing inflammation and all these things that we know that can lead to diseases. And I think also if you're thinking about being sedentary, people who are sedentary and who are spending a lot of time sitting at home and then sitting in front of their TV, you're not getting that sense of connection with people that you would if you were going out and going to a gym class or meeting up with a friend and going for a walk. And so the lack of connection as well is something that has a massive impact on your emotional well-being. And so we know from the Harvard study of adult development that the number one predictor of your physical and mental well-being above every other factor is the quality of your relationships. So if you can combine getting that sense of connection with some movement as well, then you're getting like a double bang for your buck.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So I need to start finding someone to walk with on my walks. It is crazy. I feel like, I don't know, I said this to my group coaching girls this morning, but, I was tired this morning. I didn't want to get out of bed. Everyone thinks I bound out of bed like a kangaroo, which is absolutely not the case. But mentally, how much better I feel after moving my body is profound. And I think some people don't realize that, which is hard to get started when you're not sure how it's going to feel. So I think that's obviously what sometimes stops people. But I just don't think they realize that compounding effect of that as well. Like the more you do it and the better you feel.
Well, it was interesting because I took a little look at the evidence so that we could talk about that, how much exercise do you need for the mental well benefits, and does it have to be vigorous? And so I looked at really what the most vigorous evidence is, and that's looking at those big analysis where they pull together a whole lot of studies. It's called a meta-analysis, and then they also do randomized control trials where one group will get the exercise intervention and another group won't. So that's, from an evidence-based point of view, the most rigorous. And bearing that in mind, they found that there's really good evidence for both what they call light, moderate and vigorous exercise for all types of mental well-being, so depression and anxiety. And so that means, and that's good news, because that means if you're the type of person that really trends more towards being able just to do light exercise, it's still worth it. The research shows it is still worth it. This was one particular study of college students found that whether they did light, moderate or vigorous exercise, they all got mental health benefits from doing it.
Yeah, totally.
And another interesting thing when I looked at the research was that more wasn't always better. So they found that, yes, it's good to exercise to your capacity, but it wasn't like every study shows that the more exercise you do, the better you'll feel. It's actually just about doing something. And so, like I always say to people to think about doing, what can you do on your worst day? Where can you start? And start there. And start there and just try to build up. And it might be that, all you can start with is a 10-minute walk when you wake up or 10 minutes of stretching. But the way our brains work, we build neural pathways when we do things over and over and over again. In the same way that, how you on Instagram post that photo of you every morning with the caption and just sort of setting the scene for the day, that's building repetition in for your community and for me when I look at it as well, to say, this is what Danni's up to today, and she's getting up and she's doing what she can do to make her body and mind feel really good, and that then inspires me to want to do it as well. And it's that repetition though, and so the repetition is the key, because that's the way our brains work through neuroplasticity. So think about you can only just do 10 minutes of something, but just do it every day or as many days as possible. And that then builds those neural pathways, so that then you don't have to rely on motivation, because you just get up and you go, right, now I'm going to do my 10 minutes and I'm going to do my half an hour or whatever, whatever you can do, and build from there.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that so many people use that as an, I don't want to say, excuse, a barrier, a roadblock, when they go, well, I've only got 10 minutes now, so it's not worth it, and it's like, no. And, I do put it on Instagram as well, sometimes at 2:30 or 2:45 when I have to leave for school pickup at 3, and I'm like, okay, well, I finished all my tasks. I've been sitting down for a few hours. I've only got 10 minutes, but I'm going to get out and do my 10-minute walk. It's going to oxygenate my brain, make me feel better. It's going to stimulate some endorphin flow. And so I go and pick up the kids and I feel like I've done something for me. And that's why I just think some people underestimate how much 10 minutes. And that's why I have express workouts on my app as well. If you've got 10, 12 minutes, jump on. It'll make you feel 10 times better. And I do that because sometimes, especially in what I've just gone through, sometimes 10 minutes is all I could manage.
Yeah. And look, I think that even taking 10 minutes to invest in your well-being is worth it. And that's where it's like, for me, someone who, wasn't a natural exerciser and when I was younger, but really saw the benefits of it as I've got, sort of midlife, to see that even 10 minutes is about investing in your own well-being. And it actually makes you a better person for yourself and then for the people that you're around as well. And so if you want to show up as the best version of yourself, it's going to be really hard to do that if you're not giving yourself the same care that you give to all the people that you love, especially as a parent. I've got 4 boys, and so they're all young adults now, but when you're in the thick of that parenting journey, it's actually really good role modeling to show your children that you need to invest in your own well-being as well as care for others. Because if they see you sacrificing everything and being run ragged, that's not what you want your kids to grow up and do when they're adults. And you're actually being a really good role model to say, investing in your well-being by getting some movement, by focusing on good nutrition, it's actually the way you develop them into sort of healthy and vibrant adults as well, through your actions more than anything you will say to them.
Totally. Monkey see, monkey do, right? And I think, it's when in coaching, especially if people are just starting out, I say just start with 10 minutes. Just do 10 minutes. And most of the time, people don't stop at 10 minutes, which is the great thing. Once they're there and they're starting the workout or they're on the walk, they go, oh, I can actually do more than this. But I think sometimes committing just to that 10 minutes is easier it's like a bite-sized piece, right? It's easier to process. People go, yeah, okay, I can commit to 10 minutes. And then the flow-on effect from that is massive.
It's called the progress principle. The idea is that you start with those really small goals, and when you see that you can achieve those goals, you feel good. And you think, okay, I can do 10 minutes, and then I can do 15, and then I can do 20, and you keep going, and you feel like you're making progress by starting really small. So I think it totally works. It's a much better approach, and it gets you out of that all or nothing mindset.
Do different types of movements, so say cardio versus strength versus say something like yoga that's slower, have different mental benefits?
Yeah, so I had a really good look at the research and what it suggests. And it suggested that if you're dealing with depression, for example, that maybe more vigorous exercise, so cardio, has been shown to have good benefits for someone who might be going through depression. If you're more on the anxiety side of things, then moderate exercise is ideal. But ultimately, all types of exercise are going to have a benefit to help you feel better from a mental health point of view. But really digging down, if you're looking for specific benefits, then that was the only thing that the research sort of popped up. And ultimately, I think it's about doing what you enjoy and that you're going to stick with. And then once you become, it's a bit like the domino effect. Once you become comfortable, say, as a regular, doing yoga regularly, then you can say, right now, what else, what can be the next domino to fall in my wellbeing journey. I've nailed yoga. Let's move on to doing some strength training, or let's move on to doing something else, rather than thinking I've got to do it all and I've got to do it straight away. So, if you're more likely to stick to something that you really love, and then once you've got that nailed, then you can think about expanding into another type of movement.
Yeah. I mean, I know when I'm, I don't know, in a frustrated mood or something like that, I'm like, I'm going to go for a run. I'm just going to go for a run and like get it out. Whereas if you're feeling sort of more tired and like maybe let's say like something like some yoga or something can, make me feel a bit more calmer as well. But how quickly is the shift? So say someone is depressed or is struggling mentally, how quickly like are we seeing a difference in mental shift? Is it minutes, is it days, is it weeks?
Well, most of the research studies have tracked people sort of over days and weeks, but we know from a physiological level, in terms of the neurotransmitters and things that are released when we move and exercise, that happens straight away. So like you said, with running, you get the endorphins, and so you're going to get the benefits of those amazing neurotransmitters that make you feel good. You're going to get those as soon as you start doing the activity. And then the more you can stick with it, then you'll get the longer term benefits. So again, that's why even if you can only do a short stint, like 10 minutes, it's still worthwhile, because that mind-body connection, as soon as you start to move, as soon as you start to get some physical activity in your life, your body starts releasing, your brain starts releasing these great chemicals, like oxytocin and endorphins, and you start to feel better almost straight away. And so that's why the short, sharp approach is a really good one, because you'll start to feel better almost. I mean, no one really goes for a walk and thinks, oh, that I feel worse now. I wish I'd never gone for that walk. That was great.
I know. I always say that as well. It's like you never regret it. And I think, I suppose this comes into my next question. Most of us know that it's going to make us feel better. Most people don't like doing it in the moment. They're like, even my husband this morning came back from a high rock session. He was like, that was shit. Like, it was horrible. I didn't like it. I'm like, yeah, but you feel better now, right? He's like, I feel better now, but, during it. So why do you think that maybe that's why people, even though they know the benefit of movement, still don't act on it? Or is there another roadblock?
I think part of it is how we see our identity and the stories we're telling ourselves about ourselves. So a lot of the times we might think, well, that's for other people, like Danni, she's just really sporty. She's just, always been into sport. I'm not like that. And so we sort of label ourselves as someone who's just not interested or not into that. And the mindset reframe that I really like is to think about the actions that we're taking, or that you're taking today, are not only going to benefit you today, but also the you in the future. So thinking about that the actions are a gift for your future self. And so that future you is going to look back and be so grateful that you put in the effort and made the effort to do that workout, and to, even though you might not have wanted to do it, or you might wanted to stay in bed. And that's called behavioural activation theory, that, what we do today sets the tone for the person will be in the weeks and months and years ahead. And that person's going to be grateful that you got up and you did it. And the Chris of the future is going to be grateful that he got up and did that workout today, even though he probably didn't feel like it. And so I really love thinking about it that way, because we can be so caught up in just the here and now and the weeds of the life, the busy lives that we have, that we sort of sometimes forget that we're actually setting the tone for not only our day to day, but the following weeks and months and years. And like you found out, you just never know what's around the corner in that life that we have. And how amazing if you can set yourself up with the habits that are going to serve you and serve your body and mind, so that you can deal with whatever life throws at you.
Totally. And you're speaking my language, and, I'm sitting here going amen to everything you're saying. And you're exactly right. Like, I'm so grateful that I built up a habit of exercising and having exercise, nutrition and mindset as my 3 pillars in my life, because when I was throwing something like that, you hear about people that can't get out of bed and don't get off the couch and are so mentally, are struggling. People look at me and be like, you don't look like or seem like you have cancer. And I'm like, well, I'm not letting it do that to me, but I've also set up these habits, which I'm so grateful I've done, and set up my body and my mind into a place that I can tackle this head on, and I'm able to do that. And so, if I had any advice for anyone, it's like, you don't know what's around the corner. and you want to be ready. You don't want to have something like that thrown at you, and you can't sit there and be like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. I never thought that was going to happen to me.
And no one thinks anything like that's going to happen to them. And, like I've followed your journey, and I've been supporting a really good friend of mine who's been going through a cancer journey. And again, her diagnosis came out of the blue, but she was in a really good position to deal with it because she'd put the work in over the last 3 years. She hadn't sort of been into fitness before that, but she'd really put the work in with her nutrition, with her movement, so that when she did have to deal with the diagnosis, she was able to get through it and bounce back much better and cope with, whatever she had to go through. So, life is unpredictable. And so the more we can set ourselves up to deal with, whether it's just, whatever stress we're dealing with or a diagnosis that might come out of the blue, it's worth the effort. It's worth it for you now and the future you as well.
Yeah. You mentioned something before which I loved, and that was how the stories you're telling yourself and how you talk to yourself is really impactful. And I talk about that a lot. So how can reframing our self-talk change our behaviour?
The first thing is being aware of it. And I think, often we have this inner monologue going on that just goes along, and often we don't stop and actually listen to what it is. And one really great technique can be thinking about switching. If you're someone who does tend to have an inner critic, to switch that to what they call like an inner cheerleader. And the research shows that one thing that can be really effective is actually with that cheerleading approach to use your name in the third person, because we're more likely to be uplifted if someone else says like, hey, Soph, you've got this, you can get through it, you can do it. And so if you are someone who tends to have that negative chatter going on, which so many of us do, just to switch that and go, you know what, that's not serving me. That's not serving me. It's just adding to feeling overwhelmed and feeling crappy. But switching that to go, and I love your catchphrase about we can do hard things, and telling yourself that you can do hard things and use your own name, and maybe not out loud because but just to yourself, because then you could go, you know what, I can do this, I can do it. And we are all capable of so much more than we realize, particularly as women and as parents, that we are capable of coping with so much more. And we can cope with what life throws at us, but having that mindset of like, I'm being your own inner cheerleader rather than the critic. There's enough critics out there already.
Totally.
Let's not add ourselves to the list.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not people who are going to criticize you, are going to, have their own opinions, but don't add yourself to the list. Be your own cheerleader and recognize that you can do hard things.
Yeah. And I also talk to my kids about this, and I think it's really important if we can start them young, when they're learning to ride a bike, or, I took Harlow to the museum a few weeks ago, and there was this big, thing that she had to climb up. She goes, I can't do it, Mummy, I can't do it. I said, we don't say that, bub. We can. You have to believe that you can do it. I said, we can. And so she sat there and she goes, I can. And then next minute she's climbing up it. And then when she came back down, she was so proud. And she was like, I did it, Mummy, I did it. And I'm like, yeah. And I just think even that small, self-talk, not only did she actually do it, but then the pride that she had for herself, Yeah.
Exactly. And even though those small little moments, she will look back and remember that when she has to do something challenging in the future. She'll look back and remember that if you can tackle those, little hurdles, then you can tackle the big ones. And having that sense of, what they used to call agency over the fact that you can do those things, and backing yourself as well. And I think as parents, often we want to swoop in and solve things. One thing I've learned, which I wish I sort of knew more about when my kids were younger, but often kids don't always want you to come in and solve everything for them. Most likely they just want someone to listen to them, to validate their concerns, and so that they feel heard and seen and listened to. And if we as parents come in and just swoop in and start, problem solving and fixing it for them, we've actually lost a really valuable opportunity to just sort of bear witness to what your kids are going through and be there and supporting them as they navigate their way through that obstacle like Harlow was at the museum. And that's also in relationships as well. We can I don't know, I'm one of those people that my tendency is to straight away, right, okay, you've got a problem, let's just come in and I've got the solution for you. Often that's not helpful. It's really not. And it's not what the other person wants. And it's the same with kids. Often they just want you to be there, to listen to them, to validate their experience, to support them, but that they can actually come up with the solution themselves.
Yeah. Are there any specific words or phrases that you talk about that people should remove from their vocabulary? And then what should we be saying instead? I know I've got a couple of my own, but what are the ones that you think we should try and swap?
If you're saying to yourself, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, when we say should, it really implies a sense of guilt and shame. It's got that lens of, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. I'm not a good person unless I do those things, I should be doing it. And so should's a big red flag, and really swapping it to like, I can do this, I can choose to do this. I'm making a decision to do it, rather than I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Because otherwise, making yourself feel guilty about doing something, that's not going to serve you either. What about you, Danni? What are the flags that you sort of try to pick up on?
I'm a big believer in try. I feel like when people say try, they're not committing to something. And I think when we say try, it gives us an out when we don't achieve it. So I really try and encourage people to go, I can and I will. And committing to something, because that also instills some confidence in what you're doing.
I love that. And my analogy that I would say with that is, how would you feel sitting in a plane if the pilot said, I'm going to try and land the plane?
No.
Would that inspire confidence?
No.
It wouldn't inspire confidence at all.
No.
So I love that. And try doesn't inspire confidence at all. So if they said I am going to land the plane or I can land the plane, then you're like, I feel good now.
Yeah, I feel good now. And I think, Marie Forleo has this thing in her book, and she says that once you believe something is not possible for you, or you believe something to be true, it's not. And your brain will shut down, your body will follow, because it leaves no room for actually taking action for something, because we say, well, it's not possible for me anyway. So I think that's another one to be like, I was never one for affirmations until I realized how powerful they can be, and then being like, I can and I will and I am capable, for that self-belief.
Affirmations really, I'm the same. Like affirmations, it sounds woo-woo and it sounds a bit sort of out there, but they're actually really powerful because they actually plant the seeds that you can do whatever it is that is in that affirmation. And I love them. I actually love affirmations, and I'm working on an affirmation app, a free one, completely free at the moment. So once it's ready to go, I'll send it to you and you can send it out to all your members so that you can get that daily affirmation of just planting the seeds of success. And then if you see it, you believe it, and then you make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. I love that one that you said you talked about before when we were talking about vocabulary to make ourselves feel better. I'm also a big believer in that choice, like doing things. People say, oh, I can't have it because I'm on a diet, rather than going, no, you're choosing to not to have it, or you're choosing this because we have choices in life, like the should thing, and I always like to say things like, make it a positive thing, like I'm someone who, I am someone who gets up in the morning. I am someone who, rather than it being like, I'm not a morning or night person or whatever it is, or I'm not an exerciser. I'm someone who, and then it has to be positive in that space,
Yeah. And again, the research shows that when you frame things in that positive way, and the positive psychology research shows that you're much more likely to stick with it if you have that identity of you seeing yourself in that positive way as someone who gets up and does what they want to do, or you're choosing to focus on your nutrition, and you're minimizing the fact that you might be missing out on something, that you're focusing on the benefits of what you're gaining. And I think that's so often we focus on what we might be losing, but to switch that around and think, what are the benefits of what you're gaining by this choice and by this action? And if you do that, then you're like, it's actually worthwhile and I'm going to stick with it.
Totally. I was speaking about this with my group coaching girls this morning, actually, because one of them has been doing so well, and then she had some grief in her life happen, and she sort of lost everything, and she was like, oh, I've stuffed it now, and she was all these negative things, rather than being like, no, like I'm trying to get her back on board with that positive self-talk. I think is just so important. I think that's a really powerful tool to instill positive change.
Exactly. And the fact if you do not either go off the rails or, decide that, because you're dealing with something that, you may not be making the best choices in this short term, then you just go, just because I've had a bad couple of days or whatever, I can get back on track. I can get back, and you know that you'll ultimately feel so much better when you do start making that progress again towards your well-being.
Yeah.
That'll actually serve you, and it'll actually help you deal with whatever else you're dealing with, whether it's grief or illness or anything else.
Yeah. And that's thinking of that future self thing again, what you were talking about earlier. And I say, close your eyes, manifest what future you looks like. What do you want for future self? And when you go, actually, the choices I'm making today, not because I should do it or I have to do it or I can't have the chocolate or whatever, it's because future me and that manifestation of what I want future me, how does she feel? How does she act? What does she do? What is she doing? And what's the next best step towards getting to that place,
Exactly.
Yeah. So for our kids, we're seeing kids as young as 5, which is terrifying, worrying about how they look and their weight. What role does mindset play here for the kids and I suppose also for the parents as well?
So I think particularly, for really young kids, everything starts with the parents. We are the ultimate role models for our kids. And one thing that really shocked me when I did a series of stories about eating disorders a couple of years ago now, but the girls who I was focusing on were not like 15, 16, 17, but they're like 11 and 12. And this was at the most serious end of the spectrum for eating disorders. So this is something that's starting younger and younger. And so we just need to be mindful of that. And as parents and role models, and even if you're not a parent, if you're an auntie or, like just around kids, thinking about the language that you're using. Are you talking about, how fat you look? Or are you talking about, I can't eat that bad food? Or, thinking about what you're saying and how you're approaching your body shape and diet and things like that, because that's where those vulnerable young people are going to get the influence, and that's where they're going to see if you're talking about how bad you look and things like that, they're going to pick up on that. And, it's heartbreaking to think that a child as young as 5 would be caring about their weight. And then, of course, thinking about if they are having those issues, like, are they getting it from being on screens or being around people who, it's coming from somewhere. And so you've got to identify, is it coming from you? Is it coming from an adult, or is it coming from social media? And then really just thinking about kids are so vulnerable and so easily, especially really young kids like that, they often can't tell the difference between reality and so you're just being so cautious and promoting positive role modeling, not negative and not nothing to do with guilt and shame or, focusing on the benefits of like with my kids, I was always talking about the benefits of nutrition and building healthy, strong bodies, not like, we can't eat this food's bad and, but 100%. How much nutrition we pack into what we're having.
It's actually funny. The other day I had to giggle because the twins had like their maternal health visit a few months ago when they were 3.5, and they had to stand on the scale and all that sort of stuff. And we have a scale in the bathroom, but I mean, I would have no clue what I weigh. And Harlow jumped on the other day and she looked at the number and she was like, "Oh, I'm so strong." I was like, "That's right. I eat all my veggies." And I was like, "That's right." And I think,
Exactly. That's what you want. You want kids to see their bodies as, and also, adults as well. It's not about being skinny. It's not about being, it's about building strong bodies from kids up. And for women, particularly, I grew up when it was like all about being skinny and being about a certain body shape. And now it's not about that. And like, that's the last thing I would ever want to be, is to think about wanting to be thin but it's about being strong. And so you can actually have the strength to function, and be as vibrant and healthy as you can. And you need strength for that,
totally.
Particularly as you get into midlife, you need strength to do functional things. Like I was thinking about, picking up your bag and popping it in the overhead thing on a plane, and you need strength to do that. And you don't get that by really restricting what you eat and really being, it's not about that. It's about building a strong and healthy body for your physical and your mental well-being.
Yeah.
And that's the message we want kids to hear.
Totally. We have I got this actually question a couple of times on the podcast with me and Chris actually around children about kids that potentially don't like playing sport or aren't sporty. If a child doesn't like sport or isn't that sporty kid, if you like, what other ways can we get them moving to still support their mental well-being? Because as I know what I do, people that move are genuinely happier, right? Their mental well-being is more stable. So how do we help those children that aren't those sporty types?
Yeah, and look, there's plenty of kids that aren't. I was just lucky. With my 4 boys, they all found sports that they liked. Some of them found a lot of sport, and so I spent a lot of time watching sport, which, you know, it's quite, when you got older kids, now my kids are older, you do get your weekends back, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think if they're not into sport, that's fair enough. And the last thing you'd want to do is push kids into stuff that they really hate. Then it's things like, okay, well, what can we do as a family then that's active? What can we do? Is it like going for a walk? Is it going down to the beach and just going for a walk together and doing something so that we're doing it together, and they're not seeing it as a punishment? They're not seeing it as something they have to do, but it's still like just getting out and moving. And, you know, sport is great because, especially if it's a team sport, it comes with all these other benefits. But if they're not into sport, then just think about what can we do as a family that we can, again, as parents, be role models and say, let's just go out and either before dinner or after dinner, just go for a quick walk or do something, or on the weekends, maybe have a ritual where you go for a walk as a family, and so that they're seeing that you like doing it as well and that you value it, and so then they will value it as well. And they'll value look, more than anything else, kids want time with you. They want time, they want your time and attention. If it's saying to them, let's go for a walk and we can walk and talk, they will love that. They will love it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, again, it's monkey see, monkey do, right? Which is why even if you're not into home workouts, throwing one in a week where the kids see you doing that and know what you're doing, I think can be super beneficial. Get them involved as well, especially if you've got young kids. I feel like you can mold them a lot, right? You've got that power to mold their little brains.
Exactly. I used to do that with my kids. I used to do home. I mean, because, when you're really busy with little kids, often you can't get to a gym. And so home workouts are awesome. And if people have an amazing app like yours, they can just do them there. The kids can watch, especially if they're only little short workouts, that's perfect. And again, it's modeling the behavior. You can tell your kids till they're blue in the face or till you're blue in the face, do this or do that, versus actually just showing them through your actions that, this is what I value. I value my health and well-being, and I'm going to get out and do a little short workout. And you can join me on the mat, or you can just sit on the couch and colour in or whatever. And they'll see that and they'll go, okay, you know what? That's what I'm going to value as well. And all my boys are now, still they're in their late 20s, and they're all into exercise of different types, and they really value investing in their well-being and their health and fitness, and that's got to come from somewhere, and so it's the same thing, just thinking about looking after yourself with that self-care, and it's actually the best thing you can do to be that role model for your kids. So it's not selfish, it's actually good, amazing role modeling.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think the future of well-being looks like? I mean, are we heading in the right direction? Are we getting distracted? I mean, I had a big thing on my story yesterday about devices and mental health. What do you think? What does the future look like?
There's a lot of great technology, and there's going to be lots and lots of great technology coming along with well-being. But I think often we can get so caught up in the sort of biohacking and the bro science and forget the basics, forget the basics of things that you can do to make yourself feel good. And that's things like that you talk about and I talk about too, about movement, about connection, about optimizing your nutrition, about really thinking about your mindset, about what's influencing your mindset. Is it watching too much news? Are you following people on social media that make you feel worse? Are you letting energy vampires in your life drag you down? So it's getting those things sorted first before you worry about, all these devices and things like that to track all the data and blah, blah, blah. No amount of that's going to help if you're, jumping on social media at 6 a.m. or news sites and starting to scroll through all the bad news that's happened overnight, and that's going to set you up for a really negative mindset in the morning. So getting those basics right first, and then worrying about some technology, which can be
Yeah.
very valuable. And I love the motivation of like the Apple Watch and, things like that. Get those basics right first and do what you need to do to protect your energy and your focus and your mindset, and then worry about other stuff down the track.
Totally. Gary Vee actually did a reel the other day. I'm not sure if you saw it, about how he's hoping, or he thinks that the future of kids are actually going to be more of an unplugged society, which I loved the thought of, because here I am with, my eldest is 7. I'm hearing stories of kids at 8, 9, 10 getting phones, and I'm there freaking out. But it was actually quite refreshing to hear him say he actually thinks this generation is going to want to be unplugged, because it's going to be just too much. They're actually going to want more of that connection, hopefully put the phones down, being more, going for walks, getting outside, playing board games. Apparently there's more board games being sold recently than ever before, because people are now like, actually, you know what? I don't want to be on there. And I think with the media, like you said, with the news, I was having this conversation with a bestie last night, and we were saying how 20 years ago, the media wasn't as, up to date as it is now. Every time something happens in life now, you hear about it, whether that's a bomb in, the Middle East, or a killing in America, a school shooting, or whether that's even to the point where, if someone chokes on a grape, you hear about it right then and there. And I feel like I've stopped watching the news 2 years ago, because like you said, I'd pick it up and it really it wasn't making me feel good. And I felt like it wasn't impacting me and my children, because I became, a little bit of a helicopter parent, because I was like, oh my gosh, like what if my child chokes? Now, things probably haven't gotten worse. It's just we hear about them more now, right? And so I think, I loved this Gary Vee thing where he was saying he thinks that people are going to get so over it that they're going to actually want that unplugged. And, Chris and I love board game and putting the phones away and playing a board game. And I'm hoping now, after seeing that reel from Gary Vee, that, maybe my kids are going to be in that generation where they actually don't want the phone and they don't want to be plugged in and connected. They actually just want that real connection. Like you said, just kids want to be loved and seen and have that connection. And I'm hoping that's what the future is going to look like.
I think that would be amazing. And I do think sometimes we see the pendulum swing sort of so far one way, and then it swings back the other. And that would be amazing if we can work towards that. So, because we do know, like I said, connection is just so important, and you're not going to get that, even though it's as good as social media and the digital world can be, nothing replaces that face-to-face connection with someone. And, particularly when you've got kids, the time you have with them is so short that the things that they will remember is having that time with you and playing those games and going for those walks, and they won't remember all the hours they spent wasting their time on the phone.
Totally. If you could set one challenge for everyone listening right now to do with their mental well-being, something that they could try this week, what would it be?
So I'm going to go again with connection, because it is one of the biggest bangs for your buck in terms of boosting your well-being. My challenge is for everyone to pick up the phone and to not text someone, but actually call someone that you've been thinking about, that you've missed talking to, and you haven't spoken to them for a while, and just have that conversation with them. Ring up and say, oh, we've been thinking about you, and I would love to see you soon, and if you've got time, let's schedule in a walk or a coffee. And the studies all show that when people do that, people underestimate the benefit of an interaction like that on the person and on themselves.
Yeah.
So it's totally worth it. And so just focus on that connection. It's the missing piece. It's why we're dealing with so much loneliness in the world, because we're not making that effort to reach out and connect with people that we love and care about. We think, they're probably too busy, But if you make the effort, that person will appreciate it, and then you get the benefit as well.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm going to pop that on my story after this podcast as well. Soph's challenge for the week.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for jumping on Life with Danni, Duncan. I feel like we could keep talking about this forever, because I think we're so aligned in our views, and which has just been so nice. So do you want to tell everyone where they can find you as well?
Sure. Well, look, I do spend a lot of time on Instagram. So my Insta is just Sophie Scott and the number 2. And then my website has lots of amazing free resources about mental health, and that's just sophiescott.com.au. So, it's been awesome to chat, Danni.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll pop everything in the show notes as well so they can find you. But I might have to get you back on in a little while as well for another chat.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Thanks, Soph.